We lost the air campaign. It's over. The U.S. lost. And now the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right, the people who run the military in the U.S. are telling Trump, we can't keep fighting this war. We can't keep trying to bomb them. And I said this, okay, in April. I warned everybody, and I'll play that for you right now. We used up 9 years of cruise missiles in the first 2 weeks of this war. It's going to take 9 years to replace the missiles that we fired in 2 weeks of the beginning of this war. Pre-war, in February, you had all these missiles. Now, today, you're down to this level. And if you understand warfare, okay, air warfare is almost meaningless. This insane amount of bombing that we did on Iran didn't matter at all. On the scale of a country that's 80 million people that has been preparing for this war for 60 years, it's meaningless. The air campaign is meaningless. And we lost. We lost the air campaign. There you have it, folks. There you have it. That short went viral on Instagram, got the most views I've ever had. 10,000, yeah, I know, make fun of me, whatever. But the message is true, and it triggered everybody in the comment section. So I really feel like what I want to do tonight is have a, oh my, this is real. And I was tempted to swear there because it's like, oh, S-H-I-T, this is real. That's kind of the point of this stream tonight. And I feel like I need that moment, right? Because there's been so many like, oh, you know, the world is ending. This is all coming to a head. I know a lot of people that are probably watching that have felt that way before. But to me, I see now a mechanism for the U.S. empire to collapse. And I think it's going to, it's going to cause a lot of disruption. I guess I don't want to say problems because I don't want to say this is a problem. For us here, we understand the way of service. We understand Jesus's message, what God really wants, and we'll be okay. But I don't want anyone who watches me or follows me to be surprised or shocked or afraid of what's coming. Because I think it's very easy to see, it's not easy to see, but it's very clear to me when we look at the facts, and they're pretty dark facts, that this is going to come to a head by January, okay? And I don't know what that's going to look like. I can't predict that, but I know that the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the United States, is going to run out by that time. You'll have to bear with me tonight because I'm a little bit behind. I just finished traveling, literally just rolled in to the home base here in the last couple of hours. So I don't have everything in front of me that I want to have in front of me, but I wanted to build off of the momentum that we had last week. We talked about this. This is where the short is from last week's live stream. And like I said, it went viral on Instagram as far as viral goes, and I got a lot of comments, and it was interesting to see people who obviously disagree, what they think about it and where their position is. So we're going to look at that. But the bottom line is they don't have any real answer to the core facts, okay? The biggest core fact, and I'm going to put it on the screen here. Let's see. What is the best way to do this? I would love to have all these visuals ready for you guys, but unfortunately this time I have to put them together on the spot. So the SPR drawdown, SPR is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Let's see if I can get a good image of this. Yeah, I mean this will do. Let's go open image, new tab. Here we go. Okay. Here's the SPR, all right, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. All right. Now, what you can see here is that this goes back over 40 years, okay? That's why this is a very small little blip, okay? But this is the drawdown that we're seeing in the SPR right now, okay? Since the beginning of this war. Basically, the war started and immediately the administration started drawing down the reserves that we have. And it's almost, and this, I think this is actually kind of an old chart. I think it's gone down probably to about this level at this point. It's almost back to where it was 40 years ago, the lowest point in history, basically. And I believe we will see the lowest point in history in the next few months. And then this is just hitting the headlines right now, okay? The floor of this is actually somewhere around here. It's at about 70 million barrels because you need to pressurize the tanks in order to remove the oil from the tanks. So the 0 point is actually just a little bit below 100 at about 70. And if we continue to draw down this reserve, it will hit that point by January. Now, what does that mean? I think as things become more and more clear that this problem is not going to be solved by the U.S. military, which has been the assumption by everyone for the last, since 1945, since the end of World War II, everyone always assumed, the U.S. military is going to take care of the problem, especially since, maybe 2001 or something. But the U.S. military has failed. This loss of the Strait of Hormuz is not going to be reversed by the military. We've been over the details of it. We're going to go over more details of it tonight. But the fact of the matter is, it's not going to be fixed by the U.S. military. Everyone's assuming it will, and so there hasn't been a panic yet. But I believe that panic is going to come as these strategic reserves are drawn down. And now I want to point out there's people who will say, the Strait of Hormuz doesn't matter that much. I mean, Trump has said this. The Strait of Hormuz doesn't matter. We don't even get any oil out of there. Bullshit. Can I say that now after 2 minutes or whatever? Bullshit. It absolutely matters. And your proof that it matters is that the SPR is being drawn down. The proof that it matters is right here. The United States would not be emptying its strategic oil reserves if it didn't matter. Now, the Strait of Hormuz does matter more to countries like Japan, to places like Europe. China gets a lot of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And this actually plays against the United States and not in our favor. Now, if it were just the United States who were affected, we'd be able to say, don't worry, we'll take some, it might be a hard time in the United States, but it's worth it for this war. Now, first of all, there's no public support for the war, so you can't do that. You can't say, let's everybody take a sacrifice of expensive oil, expensive gasoline, that's what it boils down to, for the sake of this war, because nobody's interested in this war. This war was, they didn't even try to sell it. I mean, it's just ridiculous how incompetent or evil, it's either incompetence or evil, and I think it's evil, to be quite honest with you. We talked about this last week, right? You cannot serve God and money, and the people in power serve money. Worse than that, they serve power. They serve their own ego, their own strategies. They don't serve the greater good. They don't serve God's will. This much should be obvious to everyone. Whether you believe in God or not, you can obviously say they're not serving God's will, okay? The Epstein network is not serving God's will. But at the end of the day, this situation is clearly a problem, okay? Now, as I was saying, the nations that are affected are going to have to take action, and they're going to have to choose a side. And this parallels directly with what happened to Britain in 1956 with the Suez Canal, when the British Empire, the sterling pound, was the reserve currency of the world for, I don't know if it's 200 years, something like that. And it finally came to an end with a military engagement in the Middle East over a oil choke point. In that case, it was the Suez Canal. And it led to the end of a 200-plus year empire. The United States just celebrated its 250th year of existence. And in that time, the U.S. has built quite the global empire. It has become the superpower in the world. And so everything hinges on the idea that the entire international community can rely on the United States to maintain free trade, the global police. We've heard of that, world police. Maybe you've seen Team America, right? World Police, that's the name of the movie. And it makes fun of the idea that the United States is policing the whole world. Well, that was sort of true, at least for the last couple decades. But what has happened, in addition to, like as I said in the opening video, the United States is running out of missile interceptors, okay? The United States has retreated from its bases in the Middle East. There's at least 13 bases that have been abandoned in the Middle East. These are facts that people cannot dispute. 42 military aircraft lost by the United States in the first 40-some days of the campaign against Iran. The United States has not won, and it is far from that. It has lost because Iran now is in a position where they have gained control of the Strait of Hormuz, so they're preventing any oil from coming through the strait, which is going to cause an international crisis. As soon as these strategic reserves run out, the United States' reserve will run out in January. Now, there are other countries with reserves as well, and they're all depleting their reserves right now. So right now, the world is running on oil reserves, not oil coming out of the ground, because oil coming out of the ground, especially in the Middle East, is not going to make it through the Strait of Hormuz. In addition to that, Iran has proven that they can strike the U.S.'s allies, such as Kuwait, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the local allies who rely on the United States for protection, for defense. The United States has shown that they cannot protect them from Iranian missiles. And this will only get worse as the United States runs out of interceptors. And Iran knows all of these things. Iran is in a superior position strategically. They also have an authoritarian regime that can endure extensive economic pain, which is what the U.S. is trying to do now, impose economic pain on Iran. But Iran is hanging in there. And it's kind of a waiting game to see who's going to break first. I don't think Iran is going to break economically because they have just been through 60 years of sanctions and embargoes and preventing them from trading. Their people are used to this, whereas the United States and the international community is not used to this. And any failure of the United States to ensure that global trade continues will be seen as a major problem, and is being seen as a major problem by every nation on the planet, okay? And I wanted to give a visual for that. Let me find another visual for you guys. Okay. UN vote for Gaza ceasefire. Okay. Let's take a look. I would like a visual flags. Let's see. Flag infographic. That's what I want. Are they going to give it to me? Oh, man. Is it censored on is it censored on the internet already? I mean, this sort of does the job. Let's see. So you can see all the pluses. This is not what I was hoping to show you, but maybe I can find the real one in a few minutes. The countries that voted against ending the war in Gaza are very far and few between, the United States being one of them and Israel being the other. And then some very minor, basically, parts of the empire, these little islands, also voted against it. So you see the little red dots. Those are the votes against the ceasefire, and then those people in favor is 153 countries. The whole world basically agreed that the Gaza attack, the Gaza genocide, needed to come to an end. But the United States and Israel said no. And to me, that is what is being set up here. The Strait of Hormuz is vital to international trade, and the world is going to maybe not side with Iran, but they're not going to side with the United States, and they're going to force the United States to give up its ambitions and its attack on Iran so that Iran will allow international trade to continue through the Strait of Hormuz. And that is basically identical to what happened with the Suez Canal in 1956. So why don't we take a look at that right now? Let's see. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. I see we've got 2 viewers, so I'm not sure what happened. I thought I would have at least 3, but this is my life as an obscure YouTuber. Anybody who wants to come in and challenge me and chat with me, I welcome every single chat. I respond to every single chat. We've got Tim, Susan, and Eleanor in the chat. I'm glad you guys are here. I thought it would be important to go over some of these facts that I had brushed on last week, but I didn't fully flesh out some of these things, and I really wanted you guys to understand what happened, okay? So like I said, the Suez Canal, that is the big item here. Now, Claude put up a pretty good description of what happened. Let me see if I can find, I have to pull it up on a new page. I did put out a edited video for the first time in many months, so I'm hoping that you guys can check that one out, and I'll probably do an edited video for this one as well, so that you guys can listen to my points without having to watch the whole live stream. But if you are watching the replay, I also put chapters in the replay, so you can enjoy those, as you can use those to jump through if you don't want to wait for me to find what we're talking about here. Okay. The Suez, here we go. Suez. All right. Let's just listen to Claude tell the story, because I think that that's going to be the most instructive thing. And honestly, I don't know the story as well as I should, so I want you guys to listen. All right. July 26th, 1956. The U.S. withdrew Aswan Dam financing. Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal Company. Okay, so all right. My wife is distracting me with a chat here. She said, "Can you tie this discussion into the way of service ideas?" Yeah, absolutely. This is all because the United States has given up on having the moral high ground. The United States has morally bankrupted itself with this war. Okay, it has morally bankrupted itself by supporting the genocide in Gaza. Where's that page? Okay, by being basically the only country besides Israel to support the Gaza genocide, in addition to the vast array of issues that we've mentioned. I mentioned one earlier. I don't want to say it too many times because I'm going to get red flagged by YouTube, even though I'm sure I'm already red flagged by YouTube. But the point is that the U.S. has given up its moral position in the world. Now, that is the U.S. government, and we, the people who understand the way of service, have a connection to God, understand Jesus' true message, which we've talked about the mistranslations, how Jesus' true message has been obscured by empire. And I see the same people behind stopping people from understanding Jesus' teachings as the people who are supporting this genocide and trying to prosecute this war at the great expense of the United States. And again, I don't even want to get into my position on, who's right, who's wrong in the United States. Both parties are at fault, the Democrats and the Republicans. But we, the people, we, those who are awake, the enlightened individuals, the moral individuals, we do not have to support these things. And we can nonviolently have a revolution and restore our moral standing in the world. Okay? That is our job as the people, to recognize what's actually happening and to stand without fear against this evil. And I believe that we are reaching a sort of an inflection point in history. And that is why I'm covering it. I have to cover this because the main reason I feel like I have to cover it is because I don't see other people making this argument, and I don't see people pointing out the solution is to regain our moral standing in the world and in ourselves, to stop letting our craving for more comfort, more security, more comfort and security, because we're afraid. We're devoting our lives to making money. We've submitted ourselves to this machine. Some people call it mammon. We talked about how that word is a mistranslation and it actually means money. We have submitted ourselves to money. And instead of doing that, we have to submit ourselves to God, to the way of service, to treating each other well, right? So that is how it ties into the way of service. Eleanor. Sorry, I should have had Eleanor's chat on the screen. Can you tie this into the way of service? So that is the tie into the way of service. In addition, my purpose here is to convince people that this is real, okay? Because like I said, there's a lot of people who have cried wolf in the past, people who have, said, oh, the end of the US dollar is coming this year, right? We've heard it for decades. We've heard it for at least since 2008, and that's kind of the first time the US dollar was really had a question mark next to it in recent history. But at this point, there is so much money printing, and it has been backed by this warfare in the world, this attempt to, where is that? Anyways, this empire, the U.S. dollar, the position, the wealth that the United States enjoys, the position that the Americans enjoy by having a trade deficit with the entire world, where we export money, dollars, and we get real goods and services, that is going to come to an end if things don't change dramatically, if the trajectory of what is happening doesn't change dramatically. And to me, it's obvious because there is no leadership in the United States working on this problem, trying to solve this problem, right? Every day we hear a new idea about, oh, we're going to have peace with Iran, or, oh, we're going to do economic sanctions, even though we've been doing that for decades. Oh, we're going to do the embargo, the blockade, the naval blockade, which is probably the only maybe real option the United States has to blockade the Strait of Hormuz and prevent Iran from trading oil. But the problem is with that is that we are blockading the nations that are going to intervene against the United States in a short amount of time when there is an international crisis around the price of oil. Now, they were able to suppress the price of oil for the beginning of this war, but like I said, I don't think it's going to continue. And so I'm here making predictions. By January, something major is going to happen. And I hope that major thing is, a peace deal, but I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening because it will involve, at this point, the U.S. basically surrendering and saying, yeah, Iran gets the Strait of Hormuz, we lose. I mean, there's no objectives. No objectives have been accomplished by the United States. And we'll look at some of these comments that I've gotten on Instagram in a few minutes. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know if this is going to be, let's see if I can summarize. I know of the first beginning. So, the Suez situation. What happened was the U.S. withdrew financing from the Aswan Dam financing. So I think that this company was in Egypt where the Suez Canal was. And then the leader of Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal Company, which was a British-French enterprise operating on Egyptian soil. So the Egyptian leader nationalized, they basically took the company from the British and French joint enterprise. They paid them. Right, that was under international law. As you can see, they offer them full economic compensation, but France, Britain, and Israel, again, Israel is involved, had a secret meeting to invade the Suez Canal. And so they did invade the Suez Canal about a week later, and Also, the British copy of this Suez plan was destroyed. Okay, so it's on the record. We've discovered now that it was a secret plan between Britain, France, and Israel. Israel agreed to invade, and then Britain and France said, "Oh, we're going to come in and act. We're peacekeepers." But the ultimate goal was to occupy and regain control over the Suez Canal. Now, they actually succeeded by, I think it was November 5th here. November 5th, the paratroopers take the port. And so they won militarily. The British Empire won militarily. But then the world responded and said, we cannot allow Britain to do this. And the fact was that the U.S. sided against Britain and France and Israel to say, no, we're not going to let you do this. And what happened next was this, the money, okay? Sterling came under, this is British sterling pound, came under speculative attack. Britain republished its reserves monthly with a known $2 billion floor. The International Monetary Fund's own historian notes the transparency of the reserve position compounded the crisis. Everyone could watch the countdown. Kind of reminds me of the SPR drawdown. We're all going to be able to watch this countdown. And the headlines are already there. I can show you on CNBC. They're talking about this right now. Let's pull it up. You know, right now, the headline on CNBC, Trump says no talks scheduled with Iran as he teases action in the Hormuz Strait. This is the news story. This is what's happening. Where can let's see if I can find the strategic. No, SPR. No, they already took it off the front page. Come on, they had it over the weekend. See, the mainstream is playing right into this whole everything's fine, don't worry. Don't look over here. Don't look over here, right? Anyways, I'm sure I can find it. CNBC SPR drawdown. Yeah. All right. Strategic oil reserve nears level that raises concerns about damage to caverns and operations. This was on Saturday. That's when I saw it, right? So they're talking about this right now. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is dropping to levels that raise concern about its structural integrity. Again, people are going to be able to watch this countdown live, as Claude described for us, okay? Everyone could watch the countdown. Reserves fell to on the order of 400 million across October and November, the fastest bleed of any sterling crisis. Eisenhower then executed what the U.S. Army War College later cataloged as 3 financial warfare strikes. First, blocking the IMF from providing Britain's 561 million standby credit. 2, blocking another 600 million in import-export bank credit. And 3, threatening to dump America's sterling bond holdings. Then, Macmillan, the chancellor, who had been the war's loudest hawk, told the cabinet that reserves could not hold. Ceasefire at midnight, November 6th to the 7th, roughly 1 week after the bombing began, with the operation succeeding on the ground. Troops were out by December 22nd. So Britain folded. They surrendered, they retreated, they lost because of the run on sterling. In the aftermath, the canal was cleared and reopened in spring of 1957 under full Egyptian management. Eden resigned. I wish Claude told us all these names. I don't know who Eden is. Eden resigns January 9th, 1957. January 5th, Eisenhower Doctrine. The U.S. formally announced itself the new security guarantor of the Middle East. The succession paperwork filed within 2 months of the ceasefire. See, I'm just reading this full thing now. The U.S. formally announced itself the new security guarantor of the Middle East in 1957. Like 2 months after this whole crisis happened with Britain, the U.S. took over. So watch for something like that to happen. Is it going to be China? Is it going to be Russia? Those are my two guesses. I would guess China. China's going to say, we are going to guarantee transit through the strait. And on the date you read that headline, that is the handing off of the baton from the United States empire to the Chinese empire. And I don't want to see it happen. I don't want any empire, to be honest with you. I think we should all live in peace and harmony together. And that's what the purpose of the way of service is. But this is what we are watching right now. We are watching this same exact sort of process unfold. And I'm telling you guys, all you have to do is go read the Wikipedia page on what happened to Britain. What happened to the British Empire? Yeah, so as usual, Claude is way too verbose here. The point is, I wish there was a bullet point here. Britain was no longer an empire, right? That was the end. Internationally, around the world, everyone agrees that was when Britain's empire ended and the United States empire began. And you can see it right here. The Eisenhower Doctrine, the U.S. formally announced itself as the new security guarantor of the Middle East. Right there. There's the date on it. The exact date. You can put the exact date on the end of the British Empire and the beginning of the American takeover of said empire. So that is the point here. Let's see. Insoluble Tenacity, welcome to the chat, sir. He says, hey, buddy, I think I sent you a video on this with the guy who made the prediction a couple months ago. Looks like he was right. Yeah, well, a couple months ago doesn't beat me. Sorry to say that. I'm not sure what the prediction is, but I said this. I mean, I said all of this back in April on a live stream. Okay, I haven't published additional shorts about it, and I wasn't able to create the clarity of the end of the air war in Iran's favor is now clear. I think it was pretty clear back then. As I said, I put the short on the screen, and I'm not trying to put your guy down, but I'm just saying I've been on this since it basically began. I remember in March starting to look into the facts about the Strait of Hormuz and how there was no way to open the Strait of Hormuz without just totally dominating Iran on the ground, which is never going to happen. I mean, it's especially with the current state of the international the state of support for this war. So it would take 1 million boots on the ground. It would require a military draft to the United States, multiple allies joining on the side of the United States and Israel. And I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening the way people feel right now. Famous guy from Predictive History. I think I remember you sending me a video, but I don't remember exactly. Oh, May 2024, Jiang went viral for an online lecture where he laid out 3 main geopolitical forecasts. Prediction 1, Trump would win 2024. Interesting. Okay, so from May, you sent it to me, the prediction. You sent me the video a couple months ago. I see what you mean. Okay, yeah. Right. Well, this guy couldn't have predicted the exact outcome now. And I didn't try to do that. I mean, good for him if he's right. Prediction 2, the U.S. would enter into a military conflict war with Iran. The United States would ultimately lose a prolonged war of attrition against Iran. We talked at length about this on Discord. Yeah, so you're saying it happened a couple months ago? Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a prediction. Yeah. I probably had that conversation with you and didn't think about it for a while, and now I'm coming back to it, and so I'll have to go back and look at our conversation. So I apologize if I don't remember all the details. But yeah, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good description right there. And if he came up with it in May of 2024, then yes, he definitely beats me on the predicting timeline. And to me, I'm just here to kind of lay out the facts of how it's like now it's happening. It's not just a prediction. You can see that it's almost inevitable. It's inevitable based on the fact that the U.S. lost the air war, and there's no additional cards that the U.S. is going to play, other than, I mean, nukes, I guess. Somebody mentioned that in the comments section about nukes might be a problem. Yeah. All right. So that's the story, the Suez story. Let's see if I've... So let's take a look at this comment section a little bit. I think it's it's instructive. Let's see which comment section. We got Instagram is so awful on. Oh, here we go. You guys can't even see. What in the world? Has anybody ever tried to use Instagram on a computer? It's just so bad. All right. Go to the comment section and it doesn't work. Of course not. Come on, man. Oh, there it is. There it is. All right. We don't want that going. Okay, so let's see. This guy said, buy RTX. I said, not if we lose. This guy said RTX hasn't even budged. Yeah. I want to show you guys the main feature, okay? This guy said it only takes that long because of red tape, and I said, yeah, and they want to get paid millions of dollars per missile. That's why. That's why we can't replace our missiles. This guy posted a picture of Pete Hegseth looking like a sleazy scumbag, which is what he is. That's the guy in charge of the Department of War. People told me to stop lying. I said, where's the lie? This guy said, guess an invasion is in order. I said, invading Iran without air superiority means we lose hundreds of thousands and lose anyways. And then he said, well, we already have air superiority. What air force does Iran have? And I said, the U.S. does not have air superiority because we've already lost 42 aircraft to Iran. I can put that on screen. Congressional research. Okay, 42 aircraft. Confirmed. It's Congress's number, not mine. Okay, 4 F-15s, 1 F-35, which is the new advanced fighter, was lost. An A-10, 7 KC-135 tankers, and then a whole bunch of these Reaper drones. Roughly 1 loss per day during the 40-day campaign that opened the war. So, lost or damaged because they said, oh, we lost those F-15s because of Kuwaiti friendly fire, which if you buy that story, I don't buy that story. I'll tell you that. Okay. Yeah, I like this response. Pack your bags and head to the recruiter then, Marky Boy. Okay, General Marky Boy, right? Basically, the comment section is generally on my side. I think that's why this video went partially viral. Yeah, okay. Is it not? It's not going to let me see the rest of these. Yeah, Instagram on web is just so bad. Oh, here we go. Okay. In the beginning of the bombing campaign, we were hitting fake targets. Probably true. I don't know what the heck this guy was talking about. He just came in and he was like, hey, back to the hustle. Back to the hustle. As in, hey, don't look at what's happening, right? Don't look at what's happening in the world. Get back to work. Get back to work, idiot. Go make your money. That's all that matters. Money is all that matters. Right? That's what this guy says. Get back to work. Get to work. What is it? What kind of a contribution is that to this guy? I don't even know. I don't know how to respond to him here. I'm going to respond to him in real life. I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. People want to bury their head in the sand. They want to ignore what's happening in the real world, and they want to just keep working for U.S. dollars. Just get back to work. Keep making U.S. dollars. Because that's going to work out so well for you. And I got to tell you, there's not some like easy way out here. The whole world is going to have a major issue here. If and when this actually happens. I hope it doesn't happen. But part of me does hope that it does happen because people have to be shaken out of their complacency. And with God behind us, with God taking care of us, you don't have to be afraid of anything. But if your mindset is, oh, get to work, back to the hustle, you will suffer God's wrath. And God's wrath is another mistranslation. It doesn't mean God is going to strike you down because you didn't do the right thing. It means God lets you go. He lets you go and experience the consequences of your own choices and actions. Now, when you understand what God wants, you don't suffer God's wrath, and so you're under God's protection. That was something, one of my favorite viewers, Hannah, she's not here tonight, but Hannah said this to me after the live stream. She said, there may not have been many viewers the other night, but I've been riding high on the vibes it produced. So thank you. And so that was great to hear. But she said this, interesting synchronicity, and I'm going to put this on screen. Join the Discord, by the way, if you're not part of the Discord. She said, interesting synchronicity Wednesday morning following the live stream. I was reading Proverbs 1 to my children, and the final verse jumped at me. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease, without dread of disaster. Seemed to sum up what you presented perfectly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying right there. Without dread of disaster. I have no dread. Okay? I do not dread what's coming. Now, I will say, I've kind of seen this kind of thing coming, so we've taken a lot of steps that I'm hoping will protect us, but I don't know. I know that God will protect us. So I no longer rely on my own personal efforts to deal with what might be coming as a consequence of these terrible decisions by our leaders. Instead, I rely on God. But I think that those of you who have devoted your life to making money, when you wake up, the only thing you think about is making money. You don't think about God. You don't think about the way of service. Then you are in more jeopardy of suffering God's wrath. And so I recommend simplifying your life, figuring out, taking a step back, okay? And taking small steps here and there. Now, I understand everybody's been fooled by this machine, fooled by this giant, I don't know what else to call it, mammon machine, the money machine. And so people have been told over and over, like I said last week, you've been told over and over, you need to make more money. I mean, how many times are we given that message every day in subtle ways, right? You need to make more money. And then equally, we're told you need to spend money. And so people are addicted to spending money. They're addicted to entertainment. They're addicted to comfort. They're addicted to all these things that, rip-offs. There's a lot of rip-offs happening left and right, and people think they can afford it. But if you can step back, simplify your life, you will be in a much better position when this kind of thing happens. And I'm no longer a prepper. I don't say, we should be prepping as far as spending your whole life prepping. That's awful. That is not the way of service. That's self-focused, egotistical. But you should take common sense steps to be ready for disruptions in the food supply, disruptions in the fuel supply, right? You should be prepared to take care of your family in the worst case scenario for the short term. Preparing for months and years, I think that that's a little extreme. And I used to think about doing that. I tell you guys, I used to be there as far as preparing on the order of years. But on that level, I believe you are way better served letting God prepare you, letting God protect you on that level. Okay? Another thing about being prepared, being extra prepared, I once, back when I was a prepper, I would say, if everyone was a prepper, there would be nothing to worry about, because no matter what happened, we would all be ready and we could all help each other and it would be fine. We wouldn't lose a beat. That's not the case. So maybe prepare for yourself and for your neighbors or for some of your family or loved ones. Be generous if you can be, as far and prayer as well, but prepare to be generous and take care of others. I see a chat here from Insoluble Tenacity. He says, My wife was the one who told me about him, and yeah, he's the professor guy. I was trying to get you to watch the channel when he had the conversation predictive history. Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, that prediction is definitely, and it's just registering. Maybe back then I was just kind of like, yeah, maybe. But now it's like, he's obviously right. So now I gotta go watch your video again. Because I probably only watched like a clip or a moment from it. But now the fact that he predicted this exactly says this guy's onto something to me. Yeah. So you're saying when you have, especially when you have, I guess that's a fragment there. It says, especially when you have kids to provide for. I'm not sure. Maybe there's a missing message there. And you said, I'm always worried about making money for my daughter and wife. Yes, I understand. And I talked about this last week. And I think instead of listening to me, I don't want to be like, oh, don't worry. Listen to the words of Jesus. Right after he said, you cannot serve God and mammon. Let's go to it. Okay? Bible Online. Let's pull up the... Let's not do the King James here because they have the wrong word. Do the international version. Sorry, I don't have this on screen. Let's get this on screen. All right, we're going to find Matthew 6:24. All right. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Do not worry. Funny, because you said the word worry. You literally used the word worry in your comment, right? So I feel like that's a synchronicity. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all of these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So instead of me telling you not to worry, listen to Jesus Christ. Okay? But my response is that not to forget about money. I said this last week. This is not about never touching money, saying money is evil and I will never engage in it and I will never earn money, I will never take money, I'll never pay money, whatever. That is also unhinged. That is also letting money run your life, because money has a place in our society and in our lives. It does. And any action where you think, I'm going to change that, I'm going to behave totally differently from everyone else, is letting money decide how you live your life. No. Do your work. I've said this on the channel many times. Find the work that fulfills you, the gift that God gave you to give to the world, and you will be paid well. You will be paid enough to take care of your family, and you don't have to think about money. That is my honest and true belief. I believe Jesus Christ's words, and I believe my own experience of how God provides, and my friends who have worried about money, friends who have been broke, that I've helped, but they always find the next, paycheck or the next little bit of money to get them through. And I believe I've seen it so many times that people pray and they find the money that they were so worried about. And so instead of elevating money to this level in your life, elevate God to that level and see what happens. Elevate God to that level. Elevate taking care of each other to that level, the way of service. Right? That's what Jesus said. Jesus said, love God with all of your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. That's 3 commandments. Love God and love your neighbor and yourself. And if you can do those 3 things, you're on the path. You're following the way. That's what the early Christians called themselves. They didn't call themselves Christians. They called themselves followers of the way. And so you can also follow the way today in 2026 in the face of all of this evil, in the face of all of this uncertainty. And to me, this is the only way. This is the only path forward, because our attempts to follow money instead of God are, to me, they're building to a head of failure. People will, and this has happened over and over in history, right? Every single fiat currency, every single currency that wasn't backed by something real, fiat means by decree. The government decrees that the dollar is worth something. Every single currency that has been like that in history has gone to its inherent value of 0. And so I'm concerned that that is where the US dollar is headed with the current leadership that we have, with the current behavior that we have. That is the point of this live stream. This is my warning call. This is real moment. And I've tried to falsify this, okay? And part of the falsification is to post this online and see if anybody has a counter argument. And I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the counter argument, guys. And I've been talking to AI about this for months. I have a whole Iran war project with Claude, research project after research project, discussion after discussion, verifying, going into the numbers, going into the details, digging into the headlines, beyond the headlines, reading the articles. The counter argument is not there. I'd love to hear it, right? I mean, maybe Iran surrenders tomorrow. I don't think it's going to happen. For Iran to surrender, they would have to, give up all of their strategic gains, like the Strait of Hormuz, and say, we don't care about the fact that we have all these missiles that are pointed at everybody and we can get our way by pressing forward. So, the idea that there's going to be a peace deal or that Iran is going to surrender, it's becoming more and more of a pipe dream based on the strategic reality. And that's the only counter argument that I can see. And it's not really a counter argument. IT, we're going to call you IT for now. Or I can just, if you don't mind, I can call you by your name because I know your real name, but I won't do it unless you tell me to. So IT says, I was responding to what you were talking about just now a second ago when I did the comment. They're not the same topic. I guess I'm confused. I was live responding to what you're talking about, not carrying out the same conversation about the guy. You were talking about the money trap. That's what I was responding to when I said I got kids to provide for. Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm a little confused. Maybe you can clarify what you're, if I responded incorrectly, please help me out. He says, yeah, I'm doing the way of service by proxy of trusting my journey to the guidance of the old order of the Freemasons, but I'll still also keep the way of service in mind as well. But I already feel way of service adjacent. Yeah, and you and I have talked about this in private. I mean, the surface appearance of it is not nearly as important as just following the way of service. As in, like, I mean, you can get away with not even believing in God. I don't know what your belief in God is, but, you know, there are good people who are atheists because they follow the way of service. And that is the secret. That's why the name of my channel is The Way of Service, because I think that the way of service is this universal thing that people can understand, and it's a message that isn't really being taught. I mean, people talk, most of the messages are the opposite of the way of service. They're like, this is how you can get rich. This is how you can be successful. You know, this is how you can have more status. And I actually think, you know, if you follow the way of service, you might end up getting rich. You might end up with a lot of status. But that if that's your purpose, then you're going to fail. That's the idea. But if service is your purpose, then you have the entire universe created by God, these laws created by God on your side and behind you, protecting you, guiding you. And so, you know, be it with the Freemasons, which I'm not sure how I feel about them as an organization, but, you know, be it with them or anyone, if you are, you know, devoting your life to service, even if you're working for money at a job, when you go to that job, treat your coworkers with compassion. Treat the customers with compassion, right? Treat your family, your spouse with compassion, the people you interact with the most and the most often. That is God giving you your opportunity to act out the way of service, to show that you understand that this is the right way to live. And when you do it, you will get the synchronicities. You will get the signs from God, the guidance, the inner peace, the connection to God. If you seek that, which I highly recommend seeking connection to God through meditation, through prayer, which are, in my mind, basically the same thing. Although meditation, I think I heard it put very well. Prayer is talking to God, and then meditation is listening to God, right? Waiting for God's response to what you said. And Paramahansa Yogananda taught me that. Highly recommend his work as well. So that's kind of the way of service in a nutshell. And I hope you got all that, IT. Let me know what you think. All right. We've gone through all the different things. Let's see what else is on my list here. And please put it in the chat, guys, what you think. Oh, I was trying to make my way through the Instagram comments. That's what we were doing. Let's see what we can get. Oh, we were on this guy. That's what triggered this. This guy. I wonder if this guy has any idea that his goofy ass comment was gonna be a feature tonight. I did post on Instagram. All right, so here's the guy. Here's the guy who really pushed. Right. This Big Mert fellow. I wish Big Mert would show up. I thought maybe he would when I posted this on Instagram, because he's been going after me. So he said, "You can't be this stupid. The Iranian Air Force is gone. Their Navy is gone. Their missile defense system is gone. But sure, we lost. Laugh, react." I love the laugh emojis. Like, I mean, how degraded is our public discourse at this point, where there's people just, and it reminds me of the Tao Te Ching line, you know, when a superior man hears of the Tao, he immediately begins to embody it. When an average man hears it, he half believes it, half doubts it. When a fool hears of the Tao, he laughs out loud. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the Tao. Here is our fool laughing out loud, right? This is not a laughing matter. I mean, I don't know. I don't care what you think about it. People are dying, okay? And if there's going to be an empire collapse, it's probably going to lead to more people dying, unfortunately. Not a laughing matter, Mr. Big Mert. So I reply, we have definitely not taken out all their anti-aircraft missiles. We've lost at least 42 aircraft already and counting. Again, that's the numbers from Congress's number. Okay, 42 aircraft. That's Congress, not me. And we do not have enough interceptors to deal with their missiles and drones. Look it up, right? He says, of the nearly 19,000 sorties flown out of Iran since the start of the war, only 34 aircraft have been actively shut down. Again, this number is wrong. He's just pulling a number out of his ass. Of those are 31 were MQ-9 Reapers. So basically the response to this is, yeah, we've flown 19,000 attacks with airplanes, and they still control the Strait of Hormuz. And they still are not, surrendering. And so this almost proves the point. We've had the 19,000 attacks, and it hasn't made it any difference. In fact, things have gotten worse because of this war. We have not obtained any of our objectives. Now he's saying they only destroyed 34 aircraft. Well, if it was so great, why aren't we still doing it, right? Again, we were losing an aircraft every day during these strikes. Then we had Then we had this guy come in who actually argued on my side here. He said, now, regardless of military strength in the region on either side, we have still lost. The strait will now have a perpetual toll on it, enriching Iran more and more with each ship passing through it. Regardless of how many pipelines the Saudis and Iraqis build to the Mediterranean and Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz will always be a critical sea route for oil tankers, and Iran has shown that it can control the flow in and out of the strait in a cheap and effective way. We have positioned an extremist Shia Muslim country in a way that they will now gain massive revenue over an oil trade that they formerly had zero control over. We have depleted our mid-range and long-range strike capability in a way that will take 5 to 10 years to replenish, and have proven that the U.S. may be a strong military and navy, but can be countered by $50,000 Shahed drones and $250,000 anti-ship missiles. And in what way, if any, has this war been beneficial for the U.S. or the world economy as a whole? Yeah, couldn't have put it better myself. This is all so tiresome. I don't know if it's even worth getting into this guy's analysis, right? He goes on to discuss these points, right? So again, his number is inflated. 19,000 was actually 13,000. And this is the biggest point. Standoff point. Low shoot downs is also what standoff range looks like. Planes that can't enter into the SAM envelope, that's the surface to air missile, like functioning area, don't get shot down and don't win. The U.S. is fighting to avoid losing airplanes. I mean, they should, but also if the U.S. started losing, instead of one airplane every day, 10 airplanes every day, you would see a very different reaction from the American public and from the international community. I mean, it's a really good thing for all of us that the U.S. hasn't tried to go all in, hasn't tried to do a ground invasion, hasn't tried to launch, airstrikes despite the anti-aircraft systems that are still in place in Iran. The U.S. backed off. The U.S. evacuated 13, at least 13, it's probably a higher number, but we'll go with the easy numbers. 13 bases, right? It's on the screen. 13 bases, uninhabitable, okay? Troops working from hotels and office spaces. So the U.S. has retreated, and I'm happy. I'm happy about that because I don't want to see Americans get killed. I don't want to see American assets be destroyed. I don't want to. I'm already mad enough that they've destroyed all these interceptors and mid and long range missiles that I've paid for with my tax dollars that are supposed to be deterrents against the enemies of the United States, not sent and blown up against the side of a mountain in Iran, only to be bulldozed by Iran and repaired a week or two later. We talked about this last week. They admit they'll fire a missile at a missile complex or a missile silo in Iran. They'll hit the mountain because you can't destroy something that's inside the mountain. And then Iran comes in with bulldozers a week or two later and clears it up. And now we've lost our million, $10 million, whatever it cost missile, and it's gone, and it literally into the ground, blown up into the ground. Okay. I wonder if my wife. So I'm realizing how easy it is for me to just fly off the handle about this. Is one reason I'm doing this topic, because I have so much experience, right? Again, this is the way of service. This is one of the ways for me to help the world, is to share my analysis with you guys. I've been a trader and an investor for, 17 years? 17 years I've been a trader and investor. And so this is where a lot of my experience lies. I analyze this stuff, I mean, I guess you could say for a living, for a long time. So, I mean, yeah. And as of the last couple of years, I'm on the way of service. I found God again and have had this spiritual awakening. And so I've moved away from politics. I'm not here to get back into politics, but I am here to deliver this message to people that I hope it can help. Right? That's what I'm here to do. Doing my way of doing the way of service. IT says, I wonder if this is the battle from Islamic prophecy. I'm only 1/3 serious here. Yeah, I mean, I talked about the prophecy angle in my first live stream about this, because I mean, it's probably worth putting on the screen again. Let's see. U.S. reports that commanders said Armageddon. Yeah. U.S. troops were told a war on Iran was all part of God's divine plan. U.S. commanders have been invoking extremist Christian rhetoric about biblical end times to justify involvement in the Iran war to troops, according to complaints made to a watchdog group. More than 200 complaints from service members across all branches of the armed forces, including Marines, Air Force, Space Force. From what I remember, it was, I think it was either 60 or 80 different bases. These complaints came out. And so this was a script handed to the commanders across the U.S. military at the beginning of the Iran war to say, hey, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. Now, what does the Bible passage about Armageddon say? Revelation 16:16. Let's find that one. It's all the way at the bottom. 16:16. Yeah. But we got to back it up here. They are demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for the battle on the great day of God Almighty at Armageddon. Demonic spirits are the ones calling for a battle of Armageddon. I mean, I don't know. You don't need anything else. Is it a good idea to, say, oh, great, we're gonna have Armageddon, right? Literally, this is what the U.S. military is telling their troops. This is our way to Armageddon. It is demonic. The spirits of demons is what causes people to fight for Armageddon. And as I said in that live stream, prophecy is not permission. And so many people who are fooled by the false translation of Jesus' words, which is, to me, almost everyone, because I haven't found anybody who's telling people how it is, like I am, about the mistranslations. And the only reason I'm able to do it is because of the power of AI to do the translating for me, because it's able to look at the original Greek, the original Hebrew, and compare it to the Latin, which is where the real problem started. Compare it to the Latin, compare it to the Syriac as a reference case, compare it to the Old English, and combine this all with a historical level of scholarship that I don't know if, you need a PhD level to understand what I've gotten into, to already know it before AI, to have researched this already, to synthesize this. But now that I have AI, I can combine the mistranslations, combine the historical analysis, and say, look, this isn't just random mistranslations like oopsies on the Bible, right? These aren't just oopsies. This is a design. All of the mistranslations go in one direction, okay? They all go towards state power, church power, taking power away from individuals. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. And I've looked through over 100 different types of mistranslation in the New Testament alone. And the most damning thing is that these things trace back to the earliest Christian translations into Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, which also captured Christianity on August 1st, 314 AD. That is the thesis that I am working on. And as I've said, I'm going to have to put a book out about it because nobody else has done it. Nobody else has done it. And I've realized, I've asked God about this. Should I share it or should I keep it secret until I can share it in a full way, publish a book or whatever? It's like, no, I need to get this out as fast and as early as possible. If somebody else writes a book about it, great. That many more people are going to learn the truth. And that is the way of service. I'm not in this for my own personal glory. I'm not in this for my riches and my fame and my status. I'm in it to actually serve the world. And so that's what I'm calling everyone else to do. And that's what Jesus called everyone to do as well. IT says, your AI use case is really good. Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty happy with this method or this type of using AI. People wonder, is AI good or evil? I mean, to me, it's just a tool. It's just a tool, and it's not my job to decide if it's good or evil. It's there, and I'm going to use it for the greatest good I can come up with, and that's what this is. That's what this channel is. That's what my work is figuring out how to do the greatest good with my specific talents, right? I was looking at my Twitter page earlier today. So I can just put it on the screen. It'd be pretty easy to find. As I retweeted this. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't. Like and subscribe if you haven't. You've made it this far. You definitely got to hit that like and subscribe. Spend your time doing only what you can uniquely do. Fantastic advice. It applies on the micro scale, right? Like I just thought of parenting. Only I can be a father to my children. And so that is something that I can uniquely do. I believe that AI is forcing humanity to follow this advice. Because if you do something that somebody else can do, AI is going to automate it. And I think AI, a lot of people are worried about what AI is going to do. I'm hopeful, at least for the long term. I think AI is going to make it so that in order to have meaning in the world, you have to do what only you can uniquely do. Because again, if you do something that anybody can do, it's going to be automated. You're not going to have that job. This whole economy, it's funny. Everything's synchronistic, right? The end of this U.S. empire is coinciding with the rise of AI. And as I'm saying, if it's like this, in order to, money might change its meaning, and all the better, so that people aren't devoting their lives to money, devoting their lives to stuff and status, and can instead find God. Because our spiritual power, our spiritual connection is the thing that separates us from AI. It is the thing that will allow humanity to ascend in this age of AI. So I didn't expect to be talking about that today, but just let us let it go where we're going. Let it take us where it's taking us. So where was I here? Yeah. So yeah, we were reading that guy's chats, and he's just so obnoxious that I don't want to subject you guys to that. But the points he made, this big Mert guy, I want to comment on them because, he did it. Of anybody, he came with a real attempt to debunk me. Nobody else did, but unfortunately he failed because he can't address these truths. U.S. bases have become uninhabitable. We just mentioned that one. The SPR timeline, okay? Here's Claude's breakdown. Let me get this out of the way so you guys aren't confused. This too. Oh, there's my SPR picture. Okay. Good timing, right? The SPR. As I said, this is the Iran war, this little blip down. But if this blip down continues, this is what we're going to get. 293.4 million barrels as of yesterday's DOE release. You can see here, that is way down here. I feel like it's worth getting it on the screen. Let's see. SPR, DOE. Let's get the real thing on the screen here. Are you going to make it easy for me? I just want to see the numbers. Yeah, inventory. It's not it either. Maybe this one. Come on. I guess it's not worth it. Okay. This line is down here now. Okay. And it's getting close to that bottom place. Let's let Claude explain it because that's going to be the fastest. Pre-war is at 415 million. Trump ordered a 172 million barrel release on March 11th, burning 5 to 6 million per week. The Government Accountability Office found that more than a quarter of the reserve, 103 barrels, cannot be pumped out. They believe that the bottom of the reserve is 70 million. So 293 today minus 103 that you can't pump is 190 million still usable. At the current burn rate, by January, the usable cushion will be 0. Okay. The SPR doesn't literally hit 0 in January. It hits the bottom of what's usable. That's my prediction on the record with a date. Okay. NPR says the largest IEA coordinated release in history, 400 million barrels globally, is covering no more than half of the 5 to 6 million barrels per day gap. So the whole world is releasing, and the U.S. released, almost half of that. Half of the world's release of oil came from the U.S., but it's not covering the gap caused by the Strait of Hormuz blockage. So again, these inventories are going to continue to draw down unless the situation changes, and I don't see it changing. The headline today is no peace deal happening, U.S. trying to do something else. Everybody's waiting for the U.S. to solve this militarily. From what I've seen, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it unless they, the only cards we haven't played are nukes and ground invasion. And I don't see us doing either one. I think, and if we pray to God that there isn't a nuclear weapon used and that there aren't going to be hundreds of thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands of American troops killed on the ground in Iran, which nobody wants to see, then, the outcome is better. It's better than a bunch of people being killed in war and losing anyways. I mean, I don't know if I don't see how a nuke changed the situation. Somebody asked me on Instagram to comment on this. I mean, you think about what you would have to do for a nuke to do the job. I mean, you'd have to, as they call it, glass, I don't know, 100 miles of coastal area in Iran. I mean, the amount of area you'd have to destroy with nuclear weapons would probably cause a nuclear winter on the planet. So it's not really an option. I mean, you could try to use nukes to make Iran surrender, but again, I don't think this ends with just what happens between Iran and the U.S. This ends with the international community saying, we're putting a stop to this. We are going to make sure that the oil continues to flow. What do we have to do that? It means they're going to have to say no to the U.S. They're going to have to say no to the U.S. dollar Basically, that's what the U.S. did to Britain in 1956. And I predict that the rest of the world's going to do that to the U.S. And if the U.S. uses nuclear weapons, the international community is going to do that the very next minute, the very next second. The international community is going to come together against the United States, the people who used a nuclear weapon. So that's really where it is. And, these people are talking about Armageddon. Maybe that's their plan. Maybe they, part of me thinks that these people are acting so incompetent that this is a plan. This is a plan to destroy the United States empire, to hand the baton to the next one, probably to China, which is, I don't want to say anything bad about China, but because I don't know, I haven't studied it. But I'm not a big fan of authoritarian governments. I don't think more bigger governments is the solution here. Definitely not the solution. The solution is a spiritual revolution, right? I mean, and I haven't shown, I want to show you guys the details of the studies, but studies have shown nonviolent revolutions succeed twice as often, and every single revolution that mobilized 3.5% of the population succeeded. The scientific studies of that. So if we can get 3.5% of the population to join the way of service, absolutely we will arrive at a new chapter. I don't want to say everything will be fixed, but we'll arrive at a new chapter that I think will be a better one than the one we're at. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, again, confirmed that they said, this is not good. General Dan Kane, warning Trump about the munitions stockpile is significantly depleted before the war and since. Now, Kane privately warning air power alone won't achieve the president's goals. There you go, a actual general in the United States military saying that the air power alone won't achieve our goals. There you go. He's admitting that we lost the air war, because with the air war is over, Iran has their goal. They've achieved the control over the Strait of Hormuz, and based on air power, we can't win it. So that is over. And that's not even what I mean by we've lost the air war. What I mean is Iran has the missiles and the will to continue fighting, and we don't. We don't have the will to continue fighting, and we don't have the missiles. They have the will, and they have the missiles. So until they can somehow we break their will, and right here on the screen you can see, air power alone won't achieve the president's goals. Commander Admiral Brad Cooper recommended stopping the bombing campaign around the strait. It reached the limit of its effectiveness. The interceptor math, 80% of THAAD interceptors are gone. Half the Patriots are gone. 1/3 to 1/2 of 7 key types of offensive weapons have been expended. Trump expected a 4 to 6 week war. It's day 171. I mean, how insane. This has been, 1,000 times. Again, to me, it's not even incompetence. It's not like, oopsie, we expected a 4 to 6 week. It's more like they knew. He knew it wasn't going to be 4 to 6 weeks. Anybody who's serious knew. And, Trump's just the fall guy. Trump's just the actor put on stage to act like this all makes sense, to pretend that he's a rational actor. And there's people who are still going along with it, even at this late hour. There are still people going along with what Trump is saying, as if what he's saying is still real. And it's a facade. It's an act. Funny enough, that's another mistranslation we haven't talked about on this channel. Hypocrites. The word hypocrites was actually actor. And so it is the actors. And I believe that the politicians, pretty much every politician, they are, one of the highest levels of actors. That's I think why a lot of politicians or a lot of actors become politicians, right? Did you know Ronald Reagan was an actor before he was president? Trump was an actor before he was president, right? Yeah. So anyways, you guys can see I'm fired up tonight. I knew I was going to just have to will my way through this one because I have almost no preparation except for Claude's notes here. And my, like I said, 17 years of studying geopolitics and investing and what's going on in the world. It did get me to buy some Bitcoin and gold and silver, and those have done pretty well. But yeah, I mean, that's not the point here. My point is not buy gold and silver or Bitcoin. Definitely not. That is not the first thing I want you guys to do. First thing I want you to do is to pray and or to figure out who can I help tonight, when you wake up tomorrow. Who needs my help? How can I best serve the world with the gifts that I've been given? That's what I want you to do. The rest will take care of itself. God knows all of your troubles, all of your challenges. It'll all be taken care of if you follow the path of the light, the path of good, instead of the way of the ego, serving yourself, serving your fear, making fear-based decisions, making pride-based decisions versus making love-based decisions. That's where it all comes together, is right there. Ryan's here. Ryan says, sorry I'm late. He had a conversation about data centers and land use regulations. Interesting. Yeah, there's so many goofy things going on in the world. This whole data center thing is pretty ugly. The way that they're shoving it down everybody's throats and the amount of money sloshing around in the AI sector. I mean, to me, that's another giant red flag, is this AI bubble. Like I said, AI is great. It's here to stay. It's a big deal. But that doesn't mean we should put every single piece of our economy ever into AI and think that AI is going to fix every single problem that's ever existed. That is not what's going to happen, guys. Not what's going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, the stock market, I mean, I think it hit all-time highs pretty recently. Maybe it was like a week or two ago. I don't even know. It's nuts, man. It's nuts that it just keeps going up. But again, there's so many US dollars floating around. I think I saw an analysis that gold, the US stock market is down on the year. So you would have done better to hold gold from January 1st until now than to hold US stocks. So gold has been historically real money. So in real money terms, stock market's not going up, right? So that's yet another form of manipulation. So welcome to the chat, Ryan. Let me know what you think. What else do we have? The Strait. Yeah, I mean, the Strait's been closed since the day. And where's the number here? Port Watch recorded one transit on August 9th against a pre-crisis baseline of 73 a day. Some count 73 to 130. So until there are 73 ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz, this crisis is not over. And that's what I realized back in April or March. I mean, I gotta look at my history. I'm pretty sure I came up with this in March, and then I put it on the record in April at the latest. But privately, I realized the Strait of Hormuz is not going back to its pre-war status until who knows when, man. I don't know when it's going to happen. Like I said last week, 2027, best case, 2028, 2029. I don't know. I mean, it takes months to clear the mines, and you have to have Iran, which has a mosaic doctrine of multiple commanders in charge of, carrying out their orders. They've been given carte blanche to fire their weapons because they know the U.S. and Israel will try to decapitate commanders. So they have the mosaic doctrine, which says if you don't get the order not to attack, you're in a state of war. And so there's dozens. I don't know how many there are. There's many different, basically cells in Iran orchestrating attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. For the Strait of Hormuz to be a safe place of transit, all those people have to lay down their weapons and stop attacking any boats that go through the Strait of Hormuz. And I don't see it happening, guys. I don't see it happening. All right, we'll call you Bob from now on. Ryan says, hello, Bob. I'll have to check out the Discord channel, see what the conversation is all about. Oh yeah, you can go look at you can read the description too. You can read the description of the YouTube. That's maybe more convenient because it's right there. But yes, join the Discord. The link is in the description, and it's on the YouTube channel. All right, what else we got here? Oh yeah, okay. Quick correction. I never said that Khamenei wasn't dead. War started in February 28th. I never mentioned that, but yeah, I said day 150, but it was actually day 165 when I said that number. Suez crisis was in 1956. I said 58. Rumsfeld was the Secretary of Defense, and he lost, and there were 2.3 trillion in transactions that they could not track, not lost, which I don't really know what the difference is there. If they can't track it, then the money basically went somewhere and they don't know what it did. I mean, it's the same thing. So anyways, this is just Claude nitpicking me, which he does all the time, which is fine. I like that I'm being fact checked, at least by AI. And as I say, I'm a scientist my whole life. I'm a biomedical engineer, master's in biomedical engineering. My whole life I've been verifying, studying reality, the truth. So don't take anything I say on this channel, without checking it. If it affects your life and if it changes what you think, check on it, because I don't want you to take my word for it. So absolutely fact check me, and come join the chat, join the live stream, live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Come tell me how I'm wrong, because I want to know if I'm wrong for sure. I want to know, and I try to prove myself wrong before I bring this stuff to you guys on air. Ryan says, you said AI isn't going to fix everything, but I thought you said that Claude was integral in realizing the way of service and the research you do here. Well, okay. Claude was not integral in me realizing the way of service. Claude, I realized the way of service in, I guess I'd have to say, it really crystallized for me like August or September of 2024, and I was not using Claude back then. I discovered Claude about a year later, personally. I wasn't using ChatGPT. So the whole idea of the way of service was not due to Claude. However, Claude has allowed me to do the research. But just because I use Claude, Claude, and I'm trying to help the world, it doesn't mean that, AI is the answer. I don't know if you caught everything I was saying, Ryan, but there are people who are basically going all in on AI, and they're kind of ignoring these problems. I mean, the market is ignoring these problems. The market is saying, oh, everything's just fine, because the market keeps going up. I mean, I thought the market would crash by now because other people would recognize what I've recognized, which is that the U.S. has lost this war, and your evidence is that the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. And, I forget which live stream it was, but I did a live stream where I talked about the oil crisis in the 70s, where there was the oil embargo against the United States, and it was a dramatically less disruption to the oil supply, dramatically less, and it caused a decade-long, recession after recession, the oil crisis in 1979, and the resulting early 1980s of the inflation crisis that was only prevented or ended by raising interest rates to 15 or 20%. I forget what the number is. But that was the only way they were able to end it. And now you don't have that option because there's $40 trillion in federal debt that you have to pay that interest on. And if the U.S. had to pay 20% interest on its $40 trillion debt, I mean, I don't even know what the math is there. It's like 10 trillion, 8 trillion or something. $8 trillion. $8 trillion a year in interest. I mean, it's not feasible. And so what always happens is that when countries are insolvent, they print money. They just print money and you get hyperinflation. And that's what happens every time. So that is a far more likely outcome here than some sort of fiscal rescue from the Federal Reserve. Bob took the crown. Yeah, because you're chatting. So, and I really appreciate that, Bob. I love when people chat because, again, I believe in God and synchronicity. I think that everything is about relationships. So what I'm really supposed to talk about here is what you guys want to know, what you guys are saying in the chat. Okay, what my plan of what to talk about always to me falls below what you guys want to talk about in the chat, what occurs to you to share or the questions to ask. So I'm always profoundly thankful when people choose to send chats during the live stream. So you guys can fight over the crowd all you want. I'm definitely a fan of that. All right, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, so Claude was coming up with responses to this guy's comment. Yeah, Air Force gone, Navy gone, defense is gone. None of these were the objectives. Stated goals, end the nuclear program, and then reopen the strait because it closed down right away. Day 171, program still standing, and the strait is closed. And again, I said this to this guy. I was like, he was like, oh, well, look at how much damage Iran has taken. They've taken so much damage. How could we have lost? The reason we're losing is because it's an asymmetric situation. Maybe it's worth putting this on screen. I don't know if I can. Where was it anyways? Sit. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, look at this. Look at this goofiness. Come on. Oh my God. I'm going to find this guy's chats. Get to work. Who's this guy? So back and forth, back and forth. I did call this guy a delusional douchebag. Okay. So he's like, where did he say it here? Just so rude. All right, this is his most substantive comment. So let's see what we can pull out of here. I don't even know where to begin. All right, yeah. The strait will be irrelevant in less than a decade. Okay, that means it's relevant right now. And I got news for you. The SPR does not have a decade. The SPR does not even have a year. Doesn't even have half a year. Right? What is January? January is 4 months away. That's 4 months. Irrelevant in a decade? That's not going to help. Okay? Iran has lost nearly $1 trillion in infrastructure, military, manufacturing capability, lost revenue, 90% inflation, destruction of their currency. So this is all irrelevant. I mean, this is irrelevant unless this somehow gets Iran to surrender, which, like I said, they have 60 years of experiencing these very same conditions. They are not trying to prop up an empire like the U.S. is. So it's who blinks first? Who blinks first? Iran is definitely suffering with the Strait of Hormuz closed. Certainly no doubt about it. I'll give him that one for sure. But this is not victory. You know, the Iranian people suffering economically, that is not the victory that we're looking for. Paul Malachy's been talking about this very thing of depleting our arsenal in a very short period of time. That's why he built a new kind of defense company that specializes in rebuilding. I mean, great, but is this currently the guy supplying our missiles? I mean, are we going to retool our entire manufacturing for this war and in time to win it before the US dollar collapses and the SPR is run dry by January? Again, not a chance. 0% chance. 4, who said this war had anything to do with the world economy? Okay. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. I mean, it's not even worth talking about. It doesn't have anything to do with the world economy. I mean, let's ask Google. Does the Strait of Hormuz affect the world economy. Yes. Yes. It has a massive, massive effect on the world economy. I mean, and this is the level that somebody has to go to. Look at this. I'm trying to show it, and Instagram can't handle anything. It's so ridiculous. Anyways, I let this stuff bother me. I shouldn't. The guy said that it doesn't matter for the world economy. I mean, game over, dude. There's no reason to listen to a single other thing you have to say if you're that unserious about the situation. There was something I wanted to share, and it was my response to him. All right. We'll find it. We'll find it eventually. All right. I said, you act like economically destroying the average Iranian is some sort of win for the average American. Yeah, exactly. Yelling at me again. I had to call him a douchebag. Okay, so he asked me this. Does Iran have the capability of escorting ships through the Strait? Now, does the U.S. have the capability of escorting the ships through the Strait? I think he was trying to say that Iran can't escort, but the U.S. can. But the U.S. has not escorted anyone through the Strait. And also, even if the U.S. tried to escort through the Strait, the cost of escorting cargo ships through the Strait is like something on the order of 10 times the cost of the cargo. So that is in no way a viable strategy for dealing with this problem. I said, neither one has the capability. Iran doesn't need it. It's an asymmetric situation. The U.S. is propping up a global empire that is on the verge of collapse. Iran has been under economic sanctions for decades. The U.S. is depleting the SPR, and the game will be up for the U.S. by January. Your cushy ability to laugh at everyone trying to speak common sense is about to detonate. Consider this your final warning. And then he said, I'm curious, what am I being warned about? Oh, we've got an... Hey, Bob, thank you. You came in there and you're helping me out. I appreciate that, sir. Although, yeah, I mean, it's all good. I was like, you should have posted my thing, but yeah, that's fine. Post somebody else. It's actually better you post somebody else because it's somebody else proving the point. But yeah, he said 50% of Iran's GDP is a result of the Strait. Again, Iran is used to this. They've been under sanction. They've been under harsh economic conditions for decades. So acting like economic problems for them is going to somehow solve the problem, it doesn't make sense. And again, Iran is not the one who's going to take decisive action here. The U.S. has already showed that they're going to stall. Trump's going to lie every single day about a peace deal to manipulate the markets and profit his insider traders. Iran is going to stonewall and continue to try to, look like the good guys by not bombing everybody, which they can do. And, they know that they have to play this very carefully. The question is, what is the international community going to do? That's the big question here. Okay? Because the international community can't continue to allow everybody's Strategic Petroleum Reserve to run dry, and then all of a sudden we've got $200, $300 barrel of oil, $12 gasoline at the pump. And not to mention the infinite inflation in every single other good because everything comes to us through the use of oil. Now, if Big Mert ever watches this, which he won't, what is he being warned about? And I said it right there. I said, your cushy ability to laugh at everyone is over. The U.S. is depleting the SPR. The game will be up by January. There's a major problem. So people like him who have this high and mighty, the U.S. is perfect. No, there's never been any problem for the U.S. We're going to win everything ever. He's in for a major rude awakening. And it's his final warning because I'm done talking to this guy. I'm done responding. So that's why. And he could figure that out on his own. Anyway, so that's my comment section discussion. Yeah. Strait will be irrelevant in a decade. Won't matter in 10 years means it matters now, even though he won't admit it. What else we got? Oh, yeah. All the insults. Yeah, when the rebuttal is an insult, the argument's over. That's what fear sounds like when the numbers won't cooperate. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the translation engine, right? We've got the reality on one side. Trump says, we control the strait 100%. It's open now. And then you have reality says one ship came through when there's supposed to be 73 per day. I mean, it's just, this to me, I can't believe that there hasn't already been a crisis. I mean, it's really bad, to be honest with you, that there hasn't already been a crisis, that the stock market hasn't already crashed, and there hasn't been like a demand to fix this problem already. Because the fact that Trump is able to just go out and blatantly lie every day about something that affects the entire world's economy in a very dramatic way is a very bad sign. It's a very bad sign that whatever reckoning is coming is going to be that much worse, because common sense does not seem to be kicking in. To me, when I see Trump lying every single day about the most important matters, it says that, and then nobody responds, it says that nobody cares. They don't think it matters. That there's no leadership. There's no genuine leadership trying to fix this problem. It's scary. I mean, that's the old me talking. I'm not actually scared when I think about this stuff. I am at peace. I am just fine. And through this following the way of service, that's how I've gotten there. That's how I've gotten there, through meditation, through devoting myself in this way and seeing God support me. That's why ultimately my cortisol isn't up because of this. But this stuff used to scare me a lot, and I can understand why it might scare you if you're watching. So that's why I'm here. That's what I'm here to talk about. Got a couple more chats from Bob and Ryan. Ryan says, AI can't fix a monetary system which has a structural problem. Yes, along with AI can't open the Strait of Hormuz, right? I mean, AI can't manufacture goods and services that you're going to need that we pay for in US dollars. I mean, anyways. Bobby says, we have expensive state-of-the-art war machines, and the way they are hurting us on the guerrilla drone terrorist budget plan, that is why we are hurting in the war. Ask Claude how much your theory agrees with, I can't say this guy's name, Zhang Ziquin. Claude will know his thoughts in detail. Yeah, for sure. For sure, that's a great idea. I'll just use Claude to help me summarize it. For yours, let's see if I can. How can I get this? See if I can get this on the screen. Oh, I'd have to change that thing. We can do it live. Let's do it live. Let's go into Iran war. My project for the Iran war. Let's ask the strongest Claude on the maximum level. All right, let's see. I'll put this on the screen for you guys to see. All right. How much your theory agrees? Come on, don't do that. Change your to my. Oh, come on. My theory. How much does my agree with this guy? So we'll load that up, and we'll have to wait on a response. It'll take a little while for him to tell us, and I'll bring him back in as soon as he answers. So we'll continue with the chat for now. Ryan says, that criticization of Trump can apply to every leader in my conscious lifetime. The government has been continuously crafting the perception of truth my whole life anyways. The difference is that more recently, the rate of financial political shenanigans has been increasing exponentially. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. You know, I've always been against, I'm a philosophical anarchist. Like, I don't think government should exist in an ideal world. It wouldn't exist. But yeah, up until this point, the global system, you know, the U.S. empire has been able to survive all of this incompetence and evil and all the bad things that you're saying basically has happened over and over. But to me, this situation is very much like, it's different. It's different because there's so many historical precedents for what's happening. And on top of that, you have Trump like verifiably lying, not on things that it's like, oh, well, that's your opinion. It's like, no, this is verified. Like, this is a clear lie, right? We control the strait. It's open now. And there's only one ship transiting. I mean, and I've seen these comments. This is like blatant. It's in your face. To me, it's crossed a threshold. It's crossed a level, Ryan, that it was not at before. That's my point, right? Not that it didn't happen before, but now it's crossing into a level, to me, which, you know, we're getting closer and closer, if not past the point of no return for the U.S. empire. So, all right, is Claude up? Oh no, he's still working on it. He's still working on your thing. I see what you're saying there, Bobby. Let's see. Yeah, Bobby says, thanks for humoring me. You use Claude projects so well. I like your setup. Yeah, happy to share it. Maybe I should do a whole Claude demonstration live stream or something like that. I'd have to figure out exactly how to do that without showing you guys everything that I've ever done. But I've got, I've been working with Claude almost every day since, I want to say, August of last year. So yeah, I guess a year. It's been one year of me using AI almost every day, if not every day. Every day as far as work goes. And even on off days, you know, I'll ask him something about life or whatever situation. It's almost entertainment sometimes. Still waiting on Claude's response. He's doing a lot of research for you, Bobby. he's gone through 20 results here, 20 results here. So we'll see what he says. Yeah, I mean, and I was talking to Claude about this live stream. Notice what every hostile commenter measures. Sorties, inflation, trillions, buy RTX. Not one metric in the whole thread is a human being. That's Mammon as an operating system. Scoring a war in currency and calling suffering a win. Yeah. Afraid, not greedy, right? You know, Claude's very nice. He doesn't want me to insult anybody. I got mad at that guy. I couldn't help it. I probably shouldn't have just gone off on him, but I don't know, man. What was it? I talked to Claude about it, and I was like, I argued back. I was like, yeah, it made me mad. And he was like, well, you know, Jesus called them a pit of vipers. You know, he threw over the money changers' tables in anger. He whipped them. I mean, it's serious. It's serious stuff. The people who are running cover for the evil that's being carried out in our name, right? These are the weapons that my tax dollars, you know, the millions of dollars of taxes that I've generated in my life. And that's not an exaggeration. I did the math, okay? Because I ran a restaurant. We paid millions in taxes. My money going to kill people. You know, what was one of the first things that happened was they killed 200 school children in Iran. The Iranian people remember that. That's why they're not saying surrender. In fact, the Iranian people show up every night to show their support for their, you know, quote-unquote tyrannical government. Say what you want about their government. I'm not a big fan of authoritarian governments, but they're not going to surrender, guys. All you MAGA guys who think, people are still supporting Trump, you think you're so sure that it's going to work out. It really isn't, guys. It really isn't. Hey, we got Claude's response. It's pretty long. Let's see. Good question rundown. Jiang has become the most visible public voice saying things adjacent to your thesis. The answer is the overlap on the material is enormous, probably 75 to 80%, arrived at by completely different methods. The divergences are where it gets interesting. Let me lay it out, grounded in what he actually said, not the viral headlines about him. I could just have, let's see, this is it's pretty long. It's pretty long. It's fun to let Claude read it to you. Maybe we'll just start and see how far we can get.
Good question to run down, because Jiang has become the most visible public voice, saying things adjacent to your thesis. And the answer is, the overlap on the material layer is enormous, probably 75-80%, arrived at by completely different methods. The divergences are where it gets interesting. Let me lay it out, grounded in what he's actually said, not the viral headlines about him, where you converge, and it's the core of both theories. First, the unwinnable war read. Jiang made 3 predictions in May 2024 lectures. Trump wins, Trump goes to war with Iran, and the US loses the war in a way that permanently changes the global order. His mechanism is yours, with different vocabulary. He argues Iran's strategic flexibility and escalation control outmaneuvers America's blunt escalation dominance ladder, and that US over-reliance on air power, the inverted pyramid, makes prolonged conflict unsustainable.
I just realized I have to read it because I'm going to get blocked on YouTube for having an AI voice because they've changed everything. So I can't let Claude talk for too long. YouTube is so fucking annoying. It's so fucking annoying with all their stupid little shit they do that fucks me up. Anyways, where were we? U.S. over-reliance on air power, so we're talking about. The inverted pyramid makes prolonged conflict unsustainable. That's the Mosaic Doctrine framework without the name. He frames it as a war of attrition that Iran spent 20 years preparing for, with proxies who have learned the American mentality, waging war against the entire global economy. Gulf Coast country bases, energy infrastructure, and eventually the desalination plants that are the lifeblood of the Gulf states. You had Saudi desalination listed as an Iranian spectacular branch on your scenario tree back in March. He got there too. Your depletion clock, his attrition math, same conclusion. Second and deeper, the dollar as the real battlefield. This is where the agreement is almost uncanny. Jiang argues the war is primarily about maintaining the petrodollar, that $39 trillion, this is all what I've been saying today, in debt, plus the freezing of $1 trillion in Russian assets, taught the world that the dollar can be weaponized against anyone, triggering the Treasury exodus and China's gold corridor, while BRICS countries build alternatives to the system that is the very basis of the American empire. That is the dollar crisis hiding inside the Iran war. That is your captured system framework, your debasement thesis, your yuan toll endgame. He even lands on your duration logic from the other direction. His claim is that the goal is to have this war continue for as long as possible because peace would let Russia, Iran, and China consolidate the Eurasian heartland trade corridor that negates Anglo-American naval power. Note the inversion, though. He assigns the interest in endless war to Washington and Tel Aviv. Your frame gets to the same this doesn't end conclusion structurally. No credible off-ramp. The feedback loop, capture absorbing every crisis, same destination, different engine. Fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know that he said that about the U.S. wanting the goal for this war to continue as long as possible. And maybe that's why the U.S. has pulled back. They've pulled back their strategic assets and they've, kind of put the war on hold and they're pretending to negotiate, but they don't actually want to negotiate. Very interesting. Very interesting. So let's see where this goes. Third, China wins without firing. His newest material maps 5 simultaneous fronts on which China is winning, without a single soldier, without a single bullet. While America loses a drone war, it won't admit it's fighting. Your China report from April said the same thing in more disciplined language. Strategic patience as the weapon, every tomahawk fired feeding Beijing's Taiwan models. And his current read on the human dimension, the fragging syndrome aboard the Lincoln, and on the longest carrier deployment in American history, and economic pressure designed to break Tehran instead of breaking American voters, is being confirmed in real time. The Navy is pushing carrier groups past recommended deployment durations with growing concern for morale aboard the Lincoln. I don't know if you guys saw those headlines this week. Suicide attempts on the USS Lincoln. And then Trump said, it's not long enough. It should be longer, right? Trump and his doubling down in the most insane ways on the most basic common sense stuff. I mean, he has no respect for the military. He has no respect for the future of the country. I mean, it's bad news, man. It's bad news. I mean, bad news for the American empire, but not bad news for those of us who are right with God and following the way of service. Like and subscribe, folks. 60% of U.S. voters now oppose the war, and munitions strain is reportedly limiting escalation options. Depletion isn't just interceptor stockpiles, it's human. That's a real addition to your what cracks first frame. Fourth, the imperial decline register. His Sicilian expedition analogy, Athens mounting an enormous expedition that turned early victories into strategic catastrophe with Iran's terrain, logistics, and population making occupation unfeasible, is your Rome to America report and your ground invasion casualty model compressed into one classical reference. Both of you read America as behaving like a late-stage empire. Both of you said it before it was a genre. Where do we diverge? Interesting. China's relationship to Iran. Your April report was harder edged than anything Jiang said. Iran as instrumentally valuable but existentially expendable. The 5-point plan as performative, the axis real but bounded, nobody coming to Iran's aid kinetically. Jiang narrates the Iran-Russia-China side as a cohering civilizational project, Iran building a long-game economic shield through BRICS and the new deployment bank. Your China is an extractor profiting from everyone, including Tehran. Okay, so he's saying that Jiang believes that Iran is working more closely with China and Russia. I mean, yeah, I don't know if we can prove one way or another because I think they're keeping it secret, I think that China and Russia are definitely helping Iran. We've seen reports of that. But to what level, we're not going to know. And again, that's part of the whole not firing a shot for China. China doesn't want to be directly implicated in making the U.S. lose this war. His China is closer to a protagonist. Here's the thing, naming plainly. He teaches in Beijing, and critics have noted his central thesis maps with striking precision onto the strategic interests of the Chinese state, which doesn't require coordination to explain, but does mean his frame has a team. Mine doesn't. On this axis, your theory is more clear-eyed than his, not less. Thanks, Claude. I appreciate that. 2, the driver layer. His recent interviews go to a hidden fracture between America first and Israel first, and the question of who actually put Trump in power. Oh, interesting. And then further post-war vision of empire importing microchipped, surveilled drugged labor by the 100 million. Ooh. Yeah, there's some things I can't say on YouTube, so I don't know how much I disagree with that. I'm not going to say at the moment. Your production versus prophecy framework and his both see a directing layer above the state executing a script, but yours is disciplined in a way that his isn't. You distinguish what a production team can stage from what only God can do. You track the manufactured theology to its 200-year-old source, and the whole thing sits inside a moral stance. Prayer, opposition, and the life review, as we've discussed, the way of service. His version drifts into territory you'd never touch. I'd be failing you if I didn't say it. The same critique piece documents him claiming there's no concrete evidence for the Holocaust and tracing communism to an 18th century Jewish mystical movement. That's not edgy analysis. That's poison. Right. It totally is, Claude. That's totally just poison, dude. Yeah. Wow. Timing and falsifiability. Jiang pays no theta. The U.S. will lose and has no expiration date, no strike, no position. Your April 27th reframe conviction book is seeing. Yeah, I've shared my trading with Claude. So this is, not exactly correct right now. I'm kind of neutral in the market right now because holding short positions in this environment is a bad move. But yeah, I am willing to say that I think that by January there's going to be something big is going to happen. Oh, interesting. The Ark. His future bends dystopian. AI surveillance, chipped labor, permanent darkness. Yours is tragic inside an ascent. 326 years into Dwapara, dying paradigm violence proportional to the resistance of the structures that must fall, but the ascent continues. He has the darkness without the light, and he has prediction without prayer. No Maharishi effect, no life review, no I'd rather lose money. That's the deepest divergence of all. Fascinating. Yeah. So Claude takes my side on this one. Claude probably thinks I agree with him about certain things that he takes for granted that he's programmed to say that I don't necessarily agree with. And that's about as far as I can go on that for the moment. I like to keep it relatively clean and to the facts, folks. That's really all I need is the facts. I don't need to get into the conspiracy theories. I don't need to get into the extreme controversy. I think I can prove all this stuff without doing that, and I think that I can serve the world better by just talking about the facts, just talking about the things I can prove, and that's what I'm here to do. I don't need to talk about how many cookies you can bake in the oven. Ryan says Trump's hyperbolic rhetoric is legendary across this whole star sector. Why do you think aliens have been playing tourists so much? Nice. Yeah, I believe that. I mean, it's quite the production that they've gotten to the point where Trump is the president and he's able to go on TV every day and say the kind of shit he says, man. You gotta respect the hustle. Right? That guy. There's got to be some code. Is that guy he's trying to signal something, isn't he? He's like, stop talking about this. This is your warning. Get back to work. Back to the hustle. Bobby says, I like how you can share Claude chats. I'm surprised more people don't use that feature to work on stuff together. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, people are too busy having Claude vibe code them the next douchebag app that's going to rip people off for their money $10 a month at a time for subscription fees. I mean, fuck that, dude. Fuck that life. I'm sorry, but I just see what most people spend their time focused on, making money, promoting themselves, selling themselves. I'm just so over it, man. I'm so over it. Susan says, I do wonder when we left Americans and all the military weapons, emissions, vehicles in Afghanistan has helped Iran war. Yeah, thank you, Susan, for pointing that out. Yeah, we all forget the billions, if not trillions of weapons that were left in Afghanistan after that horrendous war. There have been plenty of Middle East wars that the U.S. has been involved in over the last few decades. And I don't think that they've helped the U.S. I don't think that they've helped the average American, right? Yeah. Bobby says, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad. That was a very interesting analysis. And it's interesting, the area where we diverge is kind of the area that's unprovable, at least in this. I mean, I think we can prove that God exists. I think we can prove the way of service is correct, but that's a whole different domain of discussion. So basically we agree on most of the immediate facts about what's happening. Susan says, not to mention the $500 million in cash Obama sent over there. I think it was more than that. But yes, yeah, the Iran deal that Trump threw in the garbage bin. I'm going to have to read Jiang's stuff because I want to see what he says about the U.S. wanting this war to be prolonged, because I'm kind of confused about that. I guess I don't really understand why that's a good thing. Yeah, I don't really understand that. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be enlightening. Ryan says, hey, now I'm working with Claude to code me some software. LOL, I get what you're saying about vibe coding the next big win. Yeah, like I said, there's good things. And I'm not trying to say anybody who's trying to make money with AI is bad or, there's tons of people I'm sure doing good work. And I could be totally off base about, maybe these apps are helpful. I'm sure a lot of them are. But I just, people don't seem to care about the way of service. They don't seem to care about God or spirituality. And those are they're the most important thing. From what I've learned, you look into the near-death experiences, and next week I'll be going to the International Association for Near-Death Experiences Symposium, their annual conference. I'm really excited about that. So I'll be talking to people who understand that, we've proven the afterlife. We've proven that when you die, you get a life review of all the good and bad things you did, and that's the measure. How good of an effect you had on people and what bad effects you had on people. And your spirit guide takes you through it, and you see what you got to learn, what you have to go back to do. And karma is a real thing. If you do bad things in this life, you're going to have to go back and basically have somebody else do those bad things to you. That's been found in the hypno regression, life between lives stuff that I've talked about on this channel. So it all interconnects with each other. Ryan says, having a tool which can make a data tool fit every niche is an amazing thing. Yeah, and I think in the long run, AI is just going to create an app for you on the spot for whatever it is you want to do. And you're not going to need to pay somebody a $10 subscription. I mean, you'll probably be paying the AI company. I don't know. I mean, again, what happens in the future? Is it this dystopian vision that Jiang posits? I mean, it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. In fact, I would say right now it might be probable for a lot of people. It's not going to be the same experience across the planet. People who follow the way of service, God will protect them. We can avoid these negative impacts. Like Hannah said, you will not have to worry about what was it? The quote, Proverbs 1:33. Whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease, without dread of disaster. So if you follow God in the way of service, you will be without dread of disaster. You will be secure. But the rest of them might be facing this dystopian future if they don't pull their head out of their asses. And I talked about that. I mean, the whole the whole satanic inversion of the pentagram, that's your head up your ass. The head is upside down. The pentagram upside down, the star upside down. We talked about this maybe a year ago. It's kind of obscure. But here, maybe I put it on the screen. Inverted pentagram. Let's see if I can get a person on there. Yeah, here we go. So that's the pentagram, correct. Your head's up here. And that's the inverted pentagram. I don't think they have one with the person, but you can imagine you take the person and you flip them upside down with their head up their ass, and that's how you get Satanism. That's how you get the self-centered, trying to make spirit serve the self, as opposed to spirit being above and the self-serving spirit. That's how it's supposed to be, but people have tried to invert it so that they can use spiritual power to serve their own ends. And those are the people in control right now, and at least in the Western Empire, it appears. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Bobby says software companies may be obsolete. Yeah, they might be. They might be. I'm not too worried about that right now. Let's see. Was there anything else that I wanted to cover here? Yeah, I think I've covered a lot. I'm almost out of steam here because I've been going hard, but I want to mention a few of these things. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Oops. Oh, there's the button. All right. So yeah, are you afraid of the empire collapsing? I used to be. Once money and comfort lose their grip, God's got it, the fear goes, and everything gets clear. What are we holding on to? I'm not sure what he means by this. We'll be fine either way. Is true at the soul level, and empires don't fall evenly. The transition lands hardest on the least of these. The fixed income widow, the man whose insulin supply rides a supply chain, the kids already underneath it in Iran and anywhere else that war affects people. So if you're afraid for someone, that's not mammon. That's love wearing fear's clothes. Don't shame it. Hire it. Fear for others is your job description. Don't totally agree. I don't think you're supposed to have fear anyways. You can pray for people, but don't be afraid on their behalf. That is still not getting it, in my opinion. So don't totally agree with what Claude said there. Anti-prophecy move, your own March live stream. Inevitability is a spiritual trap in both directions. Doom and cheerleading. I'm not predicting inevitable collapse. I'm putting a checkable claim on the record. SPR, usable bottom, January. Mark it. If I'm wrong in January, I'll say so on this channel. Yeah, I will. I'd love to be wrong. Truth with the date attached. Trust what you can verify over what you've been handed. Yeah, that's what I said earlier. I want to talk about facts. I don't want to try to predict everything that's ever going to happen. I mean, that's just stupid. And this is what I really wanted to mention. The opportunity. Chenoweth, this is the guy, you can look him up, okay, who did the study on nonviolent campaigns succeed twice as often historically, and campaigns reaching 3.5% participation succeeded, and those campaigns were primarily nonviolent. In the U.S., that's about 11 million people. So what did the 3.5% do last time? This was the early church. The early church lived through exactly this. The 3rd century crisis, plague, inflation, emperors falling like leaves. They didn't predict Rome's fall or cheer it. They just ran an account book. Justin Martyr, the Sunday collection, deposited with the president who succors the orphans and widows and all who are in need. Rome, 251 AD. 1,500 plus widows and orphans on the rolls. 154 staff, a standing welfare payroll with no state behind it. That was the church. Plate of Cyprian, Christians stayed and nursed the sick, including their persecutors. Dionysius of Alexandria said they took charge of the sick, attending to their every need, and with them departed this life serenely happy. There could be no better full description of the way of service, living fearlessly. The early Christians did it. The enemy's confession, Emperor Julian, trying to destroy Christianity in 362 AD, said, the impious Galileans, that's the Christians, support not only their own poor, but ours as well, and ordered a state-funded copy. You don't imitate an unlivable ideal. You imitate what's working in front of you. So, Claude put it pretty well, I think. You don't overthrow an empire, you outserve it and become the thing still standing when it isn't. The early church did exactly that, and it worked so well that Rome had to buy it in 314. The capture was the compliment. The opportunity in front of us is the same one that they took. There you go. And I mentioned this one earlier, simplify, prep to give. We already covered that. So that's everything. Great, because I'm exhausted after traveling for like 3 weeks. That's it though, guys. You outserve the empire. That's what the Christians did. They ignored the fact that Rome was killing them. They ignored the fact that Rome was collapsing as long as they could. And they did what they knew was right. They followed the way of service. They followed Jesus' teachings, what they really were before they were buried. And I've covered that on other live streams, but that's the message. That's the message from this evening, guys. And, you know, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that behind all the doom and gloom and all the people saying it's really bad, because that gets clicks, right? And I've proven talking about things are getting better and the spiritual awakening, that doesn't get clicks. I mean, my spiritual positive stuff, it does okay. It does okay. I mean, honestly, it doesn't really do much, but I'm working on it anyways. It's the most important thing. I'm trying to use current events and real important things to direct people to the truth. But I think that we're past that 3.5% as far as people who are awake in this country and in the world. And all we need is for that 3.5%, which is those of you still watching, to take action, to decide to live in the enlightened way, following the way of service, waking up, thinking about how can I take care of the world? How can I serve God? Asking God for help, asking God for guidance, not waking up thinking about how do I make more money, right? That was the message last week. That's the message this week, guys. Doing my best. A lot of chats here, though, to round it out here. I guess maybe it looks like Bobby might have signed off, but I'll respond to his chats anyways. Bobby says, I would argue it's just a frame of reference on where you are observing the pentagram from. It can look inverted or upright. Even the Jedi Order had legitimate flaws. Even though the Sith were evil, they were necessary. So people who reverse the pentagram are serving God's design in some way. That is my personal belief. Even though they think they are serving Satan, even Satan serves a purpose for God. I mean, yes, I agree with that in the long run, that it's all part of God's design. In a way, it's God's play. It's God's great entertainment for himself to have created this creation, which necessarily includes evil. So that's the devil's advocate that you just did, literally. But from this point, from this position, to me, it's pretty obvious which way we want to go. And yeah, I mean, all the evidence shows, sure, you can act evil, and that's allowed in creation, but you're going to have a bad time. You're going to have, bad karma that you got to make up for now. And if you want to be a part of, the higher realms, the higher beings who are trying to do better, I think the way that it works is God creates his creation. He creates all of these beings. He gives them free will. They leave God. They do evil. And then ultimately they come back to God by doing good. And so that is that. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go closer to God, reunite with God, work with all the people who are trying to bring everybody back to God? And then I think it happens all over again after we all have this blissful reuniting with God and each other. That's what I'm working towards. I think it's going to be, a few trillion years from now, we'll all meet together and be like, wow, that was quite the ride. Quite the ride. Should we do it again? Maybe. And that's a little bit of speculation, a few trillion years down the line, but that's the long run. In the meantime, I'm kind of sick of the Satanists running things. I'm kind of over it. I think we need a break from that. Susan says, we'll see if the demons win. Yeah, they're not going to win. Bobby says, after all, there's no prologue to Genesis, and the snake was already there. Yeah, but how complete is that story? Bobby says, know that selfish people are being good, but they are bringing balance even unknowingly. Good night. Good night, Bobby. Thanks for joining. Ryan says, wonderful rants. Thank you. So thank you guys for joining. Know that selfish people are being good, but they are bringing balance even unknowingly. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's kind of a slippery slope argument, right? It's like, well, if I do evil, I'm just bringing balance to the force. I'm just bringing balance to God's creation. But the evidence says that's not really where we're at. At least human beings on Earth right now and in the last few thousand years where we have near-death experiences records, it's about, are you doing good? Are you doing bad? And, to be honest, you just experience all of the emotions that you cause. So you experience the good emotions and you experience the bad emotions. If you really like bad emotions, I guess that's a whole different level, right? So maybe that's good if you do bad, and then it's bad if you do good. I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I don't think so. I think that logic runs one way. Logic and truth are good, and ignorance and lies are evil. And you can choose which one you want to live your life by. From here on Earth, in this dimension, that's how I think it works. So if you want to do evil, I would wait on that. I would hold off. I would hold off on the evil. Don't do evil because you think it's going to bring balance to the force. I'm not sure that's the right move. But yeah. That's where I'm at today, guys. I love you guys. And I'm live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Hopefully I'll be here next week. And let me know in the comments section. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the Discord what you think, because I want to keep having this discussion and figuring out where to go from here. I love you guys, and I will see you next week.